Crown Sterling empowers individuals to protect, control, and monetize their data. And with me is the CEO, Robert Edward Grant, to explain what Crown Sterling is doing here. So, Robert, let's just start with, tell me your background and a little bit of what your role is with Crown Sterling.
Sure. So I spent most of my career in healthcare, actually. And I was formerly president of Allergan Medical, which launched Botox and Juvederm and Lap-Band and Latisse. And then I was also CEO of Bausch & Lomb Surgical. But I've also been an avid mathematician over many years now. And in 2019, I discovered a prime number pattern, which was relevant to cryptography. And so I decided that I needed to, create a new kind of cryptographic protocol or new cryptography or encryption platform. And that became the basis of Crown Sterling. So we're an encryption company that is the first to use one-time pad encryption, which is the very best, most powerful encryption in the world, on top of blockchain technology.
That's very interesting. And your mission really is data sovereignty. So explain, what does that mean exactly? Why is that important?
Well, most of us don't even know. I mean, when you sort of think about it, money requires banks to secure it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at things like property and assets, we need fences and walls. But actually, data is the world's most valuable asset today. And what does it need? It needs encryption. And actually, most people don't know that all of us have a lot of data that's highly, highly valuable. And we don't realize that we're giving it up so easily every day. And we're giving it in exchange for being on free platforms. And when we don't realize then that when we're on a platform that's free or seemingly free, then you're the product.
Yeah.
So this idea is that I think everybody needs to have control over their own data. We put in place a data bill of rights even, which basically says that data is the property of the original producer. We believe that data is the intangible personal property of the original producer and therefore protected by the Constitution, protected by Bill of Rights, protected by the European Union Charter for Human Rights, as well as the United Nations similar charter. So we fundamentally believe that data, being the world's most valuable asset, it's more valuable than oil, more valuable than any natural resource that we have on planet Earth today, needs to be protected for the original producers. And so we've created a system on blockchain for people to be able to capture their data, put a fence around it, protect it, and then decide if they ever want to monetize it or not. That should be their choice and only their choice.
Yeah, well, that is really interesting. And there's a reason why Facebook is a, $50-60 billion company. It's the data behind Google. And I mean, the most powerful companies in the world are really based on data. So, I think a lot of people hear cryptography, encryption. It sounds kind of, I don't know, scary. They don't totally understand that. How does it work? How do you explain why that is important for, average people?
Well, so encryption is whenever you want to make something secret, right? So you have to be able to apply some cryptographic mathematical algorithm around your data so that it doesn't just get stolen. I mean, if you think about it, what is it that backs the US dollar? It's the trust that we have in the system that the bank can't just be easily broken into, right? And all of your assets be, taken out of it. It used to be that we had gold backing our currency, and gold was not a bad way to have it because people couldn't come in and easily steal it, right? I mean, how could you walk away with your body weight in gold? It'd be very difficult. You won't probably get very far. But in today's world, data, could be on a simple USB. It could be on a very, very small little drive that could sit in a flash inside your pocket. And that data could have all of your life's information in it. Just imagine what that's like. So we need to be able to be vigilant about protecting our data to ensure that it's going only for the uses that we intend them to be used for. And, data is a very powerful thing. It's amazing. I just saw that candidates for elections today, one of the guys I know that's running for Congress in Southern California, showed me an app that he has that I could look myself up on the app as every other citizen in the United States, and I could read exactly my position on every single voter issue. I've never filled out a survey for this, and yet every bit of data imaginable on how I felt about COVID, how I felt about how I feel about China, right? Am I a hawk on China, and do I have fears about China? Even my positions on things like abortion, all of it is in this app that any candidate for office can have easy access to right now just by paying a fee for it. Now, all of this data is scraped from my messaging platforms and my social media platforms. It's not that I'm answering these questions, it's all interpolated, right? So that it could be derived in this format. And it's scary accurate. It is scary accurate.
It's some kind of algorithm, right? That like takes all of this, information that we have through postings and our demographics and comes up with some kind of profile that turns out to be pretty accurate.
Well, it's kind of nuts because even for me, it basically said that I had a high religiosity. I'm not a religious person. And I would say I'm more on the spiritual side, but not religious per se. And I'm like, why does it say I'm highly religious? So I clicked on it and it said, because my 2 children go to private schools.
Interesting.
And my private schools, the private schools they go to are affiliated with churches. So therefore, I must be more religious.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, wow. And I said, but that doesn't mean I'm going to vote religious. And they said, no, but what it does mean, it puts you in a category that you will more likely vote in that direction because your kids go to a school like that. And you'll want to protect that right for them.
And the fact they even knew where your kids went to school is a little creepy too. So
they had my address in it and everything. So like, this is shocking. The fact that anybody has this free and easy access to my data and that a candidate can read all this stuff, say the exact things that he thinks I want to hear to get his vote, to get the vote for him. That's kind of scary.
Yeah. So let's talk about the quantum-resistant encryption. And quantum computing is very early stages, but is that what this refers to, new technologies, and why encryption would need to be resistant to that?
Yeah, well, quantum computing is not so early anymore. So it's already available. There are many quantum computers now available in the world. IBM is already working on, a quantum computer that has more than 1,000 qubits, which is a way of measuring how much power it actually has. And there was a research paper out of Hefei University, which was basically written about the ability they used a quantum computer to crack a very large number for encryption. So the way the encryptions work, they're based on the size of numbers, either in what's called prime factorization or elliptic curves. And so they're based on a lot of time. It should take something like 20 quintillion years to crack an encryption of the scale that they cracked in only 4.2 hours. So they already exist. And I think that's a thing that people don't really understand. Quantum computing is definitely here. It doesn't mean that it's in everybody's hands right now, but it is in the hands of a few. And certainly state actor level already have quantum computing access.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, this is, a potential threat as well.
Which means that they can crack bank accounts. That means that they can crack into anything. And we're already seeing this in many, many different reports. In fact, just recently, there were some reports in the blockchain industry about something called Wintermute. It was a hack for about $160 million, and the crack came as a result of cracking, not hacking. So cracking and hacking are two different things. We all hear about hacking, right? Yeah. Hacking is when I can lift your password somehow, some way. But cracking means that someone was able to penetrate the vault, right? So it's like if someone's going to go and rob a bank, the way they would rob a bank is they're not going to go to the vault because the vault's this huge steel door. They're not going to be able to get through that. So they go to the person at the teller desk and they say, give me the key, right? And I'll go in there. Or they'll wait till later at night, they'll find the information and then get the key to go in. No one ever attacks encryption usually until now. And now encryptions are being directly targeted because they can be cracked. And it's a large mathematical equation that actually just takes a lot of time on standard computers, but can be done very quickly using quantum computers. Yeah. And now you can go straight to the vault. You don't even have to find the key from the teller.
What's the current state of data sovereignty, and what is Crown Sterling doing to solve those issues?
So the big issue is that all of the encryptions today are generally number theory based encryptions. So it means that they're based on a mathematical equation or a quadratic function. Okay, you might remember some of these words from school mathematics. But actually, what we decided to do was go for the one that's used on nuclear codes, which is called one-time pad. The reason why it's used on nuclear codes is because it is uncrackable. It's theoretically perfect secrecy. It's not based on a mathematical equation. It's based on something called information theory. Information theory means that no amount of computational resource can use a quadratic function or some sort of mathematical equation to crack it, because it's not based on number theory. It's entirely different. It also entails that every single character is individually encrypted for your data set. So imagine you have a 1 gigabyte file, you have a 1 gigabyte long key. Now, how could people remember that? We had to come up with a very, very innovative way to compress those keys losslessly, and we did. And that's what we basically put in our one-time pad. And now we implemented it on top of blockchain technology. So we're going to have a one-time pad protected blockchain encryption technology.
Okay. Then finally, Robert, what are your thoughts about data sovereignty and crown sterling and what role it will play in that, say, 10 years from now?
So I believe that the best chance that we have probably at a universal basic income is our data. Each of us, for the first time in human history, are creating value just through our behaviors on the internet. We're creating value. So for the first time in human history, we don't have to toil to create value. So think about the implications of that. As long as that value is no longer just sitting in the hands of 5 or 6 oligopolistic companies, this could be a very, very powerful resource for truly a universal basic income. But we need to have a mechanism and a marketplace for people to monetize those things, right? How do they monetize their data? Or if they never want to monetize it, how can they protect their data to make sure that no one else has access to it? Mm-hmm. This is simple as realizing that you own property and putting a fence around it. And what Crown Sterling has done is we've created an architecture and a system with also a messaging and social media platform as well that allows you to be able to capture all of your data, also through a VPN that's quantum resistant as well, capture your data, and then NFT that data as a blockchain. Mm-hmm. And then you can decide if you ever want to sell it or not. Yeah. I mean, to put it into context, if I read a report recently that was done by McKinsey, I believe, that basically said that if Facebook were to write every American a check that was, how much revenue they got off of each of those people relative to their data on Facebook, and then the consequences of that data being on Facebook as well, they would be writing a check of about $600 in 2019, $1,300 in 2020, and over $2,000 in 2021. So when you look at that, that's become significant numbers. Most people don't know that the unintended consequence of them being on Facebook and social media might actually be that they're releasing this degree of value from themselves. I mean, that would come out to be like $200 a month. I just don't think people understand that. And whether or not the world understands that, I think is going to be critical for them being able to actually realize whether we can have a universal basic income through our data.
That's really interesting. And you're right. It does. When I think of some third world countries, this could be life-changing for some people to be able to sell their data. I mean, it could really kind of upend the whole economic system in a way. So that's fascinating to think about.
Well, the market is already $2.5 trillion for data, $2.5 trillion. So put that in context. That's very significant, and it's growing very quickly. We saw during COVID and the shutdowns that, the tech companies did really well. Right. Yeah. Because people were online even more. Right. And I think we just don't understand the implications of, this social media experiment that we've had. Right. Yeah. We don't even realize that it's even more fundamental than just basically being able to ascribe value to our data. It's more fundamental than that. It speaks to the very heart of what democracy means, because we don't even realize that when we go on social media, the whole aim of the exercise is for us to get a dopamine hit. Right. Dopamine hit so that we stay longer on the platform. The more dopamine. So this is like the best drug dealing in the world, right? Because in a way, they've been able to do it without having to have a farm, without having to have farmers, without having to do any of that work or even worry about, because all of this is legal. It's all totally legal.
Oh, yeah.
And so what happens is they know how to keep us on the platform by giving us more dopamine. And the way they achieve that is by making sure we go into echo chambers of our own conditioning bias. So this is why we've got such a polarized nation right now, in part, because people go into these rooms and chat rooms and they're like, wow, everyone agrees with me. They don't even realize that they've basically been manipulated into going into that place. The advertisements, the things they see, right, are all in line with their conditioning bias to give them more dopamine. And as a result of this, we can't even have like dinner conversations on Thanksgiving dinner.
Right. Oh,
about politics and things like that, because people are like, wait, you don't agree with me? Oh my gosh.
I don't like you anymore. I don't want to be around you.
How can this be, right? Someone doesn't agree with it or see the same way that I see it. I mean, this is what's happened. And we all kind of are wondering right now, what is going on with our country, because it is so polarized. And we don't realize that it's a direct result of the technology we've been using. Now, every technology has a benefit and it has a negative consequence. That's nature, right? That's life. Every action must have an equal opposite reaction. But we can get smarter about this and start realizing I really enjoy my ability to make my own decisions and have other people that don't believe the same way I do or see the world the same way I do potentially present me with a countervailing opinion that might actually change my mind. I like that ability. I don't want to be in a world that's very dystopian where I can't even make decisions on my own because I'm just going in there to feed this energy of my own dopamine, basically, that's creating this consequence for me and for the larger society.
Yeah. Well, it was absolutely fascinating, Robert. Best of luck with the data sovereignty, because I think people are starting to realize that, they're giving away something very valuable for free and they shouldn't be doing that anymore.
Just remember, if it's free, right? If it's free, then you're the product.
That's right. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you.